Good afternoon and welcome to the Longboat Energy PLC investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged, can be submitted at any time by the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Just click Q&A, scroll to the bottom, type your question and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question received during the meeting itself. However, the company review all questions submitted today and will publish responses where appropriate to do so. Before we begin, we'd like to submit the following poll. I'd now like to hand you over to Nick Ingrisa, Corporate Development Director, Jonathan Cooper, CFO, and Helge Hammer, CEO. Good afternoon to you all.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Very pleased to present you with an update this afternoon. So we are a very active drilling company, exploration drilling. We have drilled 8 wells in 15 months, which is probably among the most in the North Sea. The success rates have been good. We have made 4 discoveries in 8 wells. Technical discoveries is 5. Finding costs are low. So we are ahead of industry average in terms of discoveries. Very happy with the last one, the Osvik discovery, which we announced on Friday, and we'll come back to that shortly. In terms of going forward now, the focus is really moving into appraisal and monetization and demonstrating the value of what we have discovered. So we're moving from making technical discoveries to making them into commercial discoveries. And in that sense, when we're talking about that, then Kveikje discovery from the spring is high on the agenda, and we'll come back to that shortly. Other than kind of moving forward with our discoveries, we are working actively to generate a drilling program for next year. The plan is to have 3 to 5 high-impact wells in 2023. We have at the moment 1 committed well. That's the Velocette exploration target. Exciting well coming next year, and we'll explain that to you shortly. We've also applied in the licensing round in Norway, the so-called APA round. We've applied for a drillable prospect that we can move forward with right away, provided we get it. And we have a long list of BD opportunities that we are continuously pursuing, and Nick will cover that. Also looking a bit wider than only Norway. With that, as an introduction, I'll hand over to John.
Thank you, Helge. I think balance sheet's probably something that people are interested in, so let's start there. We finished the 6-month period to the 30th of June with 22.5 million cash on the balance sheet, slightly ahead of expectations. And that's really due to lower than forecast drilling costs. When we originally farmed in, did the 3 farm-ins and got the 7-well program lined up, we had our own estimates of drilling costs. We then got AFEs from operators that were lower, and we've pretty much drilled to the AFEs or lower. So the drilling in Norway has been safe and efficient, and that enabled us to take on, to do a 4th farm-in transaction and take on the Osvik and Velocette wells. We were 15.7 million drawn on our exploration finance facility, and we had a non-current tax receivable of 21 million pounds, which is due to be paid in Q4 2023 from the Norwegian government. So if you remember, in Norway, you get you used to get 78% of your exploration costs repaid to you. We had tax changes in Norway last year. The government flagged these tax changes, went through a exhaustive consultation period, which was useful. They listened, they understood what we need, what small companies such as ourselves needed. Helge led a sort of a consultation group of small companies and went in to see the people heading it up. These changes were proposed by an outgoing Conservative party and have been ratified this June by an incoming Labour coalition. So it's a sort of cross-party consensus, if you like, for this. The good thing, we had good communication from the government that enabled us to continue to draw on our EFF from the 1st of January, despite some uncertainty as to the exact nature of the changes. And then we signed new agreements in June this year, which was exactly as expected. So a really well-run process. It went from 78% of your exploration cost being rebated to 71.8% of a broader cost pool. So you've got your 71.8% of your G&A, your exploration, and you can also get your development costs included. So effectively, you get 100% writing down allowance or in the first year, rather than having 6 years of amortization. So I think the balance sheet is where we would expect it to be, or slightly ahead of expectations. We had a loss for the period of 1.7 million. No write-off of intangibles. We're still working on some of the licenses where we did drill dry wells. That work will come to completion, sort of around the year end or just after the year end, and decisions will be made on, in line with accounting standards as to whether we need to write off or not. I would imagine there may be some write-offs. We'll see. Depends on the outcome. If we go to the next slide. I think the 2 points to note here is we also had not only a change to the underlying tax regime, but we had a change. We were under the temporary tax rules in Norway last year, which were more generous than the underlying tax rules, and so we had 10.6 million. This is where they paid you out in 6 installments, 3 in the current year and 3 post the year end. So we got paid 10.6 million from the government under the temporary route, the COVID interim rules to help the offshore industry, and then we've drawn 15.7 on the EFF. So the only other point is that we now have discoveries, and Nick and Helge will talk about those discoveries, and we'll talk about options around monetizing certain of those discoveries as well as we work on our business, and as a way of funding our BD pipeline, because we don't want to just sit here and drill a sidetrack on Oswig and one well on Velocette next year. So over to you, Helge.
Thanks, John. Yeah, so Oswig is the discovery we just announced on Friday, looking very promising, I must say. The discovery is just to the west of the Oseberg field. Oseberg field is right in the middle of the Norwegian North Sea. It's a huge field with multiple platforms. It's planned for electrification. It has gas export lines, oil export lines, and it has multiple satellites already. One of them is Tuna. Tuna is a field that we had as an analog to our exploration prospect called Oswig, so sitting down dip into the HPHT setting on the down flank of Oseberg. This well came in very, very correlatable to Tuna, so reservoir and reservoir quality, porosity, gas presence, and porosity, sand. All of that is looking very similar to Tuna. We have announced that we think the in-place volumes are on the high side compared to pre-deal expectations. Main drivers for that is that we now have a gas water contact that is deeper than the pre-drill expectation, and we have what looks like a more condensate-rich fluid than what also was the pre-drill expectation. Pre-drill expectation in terms of reserves is 93 million BOE gross. That has, the missing piece of the puzzle to get to that number is the recovery factor, and to get a good grip on the recovery factor is kind of the main objective of this flow test. So we prove the producibility, the flow rates, and then we also then get a good grip on the recovery factor. So assuming that is similar to Tuna in the 50-60%, then reserves will also be on the high side compared to pre-drill expectations. The assuming that's all successful, then we have follow-on potential shown in these yellow areas, Osvik North, West, and Mid, also having pre-drill 80 million. So it can almost double if we add these extra volumes. Maybe take a look at the next page. So where we are now, we have started drilling on the side track, and then we are rigging up for a production test. All of that will take 6 to 8 weeks. Started last Friday. Tuna there is shown the production profile. I think that production will produce with something like 5 wells. So this is potentially very productive. Fingers crossed for the test. If that comes in well, this is exactly what we've been looking for. We'll take a look at the other discovery we have from this year is Kveikje, and I'll hand over to Nick.
Thank you, Helge. So as you may recall, Kveikje is a discovery we made this spring. We're very, very excited about. It's one of the best discoveries of 22 so far, and one of Equinor's largest discoveries. It's great for 2 reasons. First of all, excellent reservoir quality, which we don't think will require appraisal, and it's in a wonderful location in terms of infrastructure. As you can see, there's been a very busy period for Equinor in this area. There have been a number of discoveries, and what's going on is that they are looking at potential area-wide developments as well as individual developments through Fram and through the Troll infrastructure there. Again, this is Equinor's heartland, Troll being one of the largest gas fields in Europe, if not the world. Unfortunately, we only have 10% of Kveikje. I wish we had more, and I wish we were in some of the other ones as well. But that means, I think for us, it was kind of getting to a decision point. We try and grow or go in this area. And based on a number of the reverse inquiries that we've had, we decided to begin to investigate what a go might look like. So we're actively pursuing some of these discussions, trying to understand what a deal might look like. As some of you may recall, Faroe was well known for doing interesting and innovative transactions, both in terms of just selling discoveries for cash, but also in terms of looking for potential swap opportunities and swapping into production. And so we're going to consider the whole range of opportunities here. The one thing we definitely want to do is we don't want to be pressured into anything. So we're definitely going to take our time here. The key is to have a good competitive tension amongst people who are interested. And so watch this space. It'll be an area of focus for us in the coming months.
And then we have, comment on the discovery we made last year in December, Egyptian Vulture. And we were expecting to make an appraisal well decision on that mid-year, which was postponed till the end of this year. In the meantime, we have had a competent person report on this asset, and which has provided a 2C resource range of 4 to 68 million, so a wider range than what we announced as the discovery was made, which reflects the uncertainty, I think, in this asset, but also the upside. And clearly, we are keen to go after this with an appraisal well, because we are strong believers in the higher end of that 2C range. We believe the well was drilled and missed the sweet spot in terms of sand lobes in this setting. So a lot of the technical work that's been going on is all about kind of making sure that the appraisal well targets and maximizes the chance of penetrating these the good sands, which kind of will then also prove up the bigger volume and producibility of this. I mean, just a reminder, this is in the Norwegian Sea, surrounded by infrastructure. There is a subsea template called Maria, which is sitting just to the west of Egyptian Vulture, and is actually drillable from that template. So the economic cutoff volume for Egyptian Vulture to work is very small. I think many of you will ask, why has this decision been done already? I think I here have to say that we are in a joint venture with other companies which have their own priorities. We have Equinor as an operator, and it's not entirely in our control to control the timing of these appraisal well decisions. Then we'll take a look at the well that we have ahead of us in Q3, the last well in the current program. This is one that we also farmed into through OMV in the spring. It was the Osvik well and the Velocette well. This is exciting, very exciting actually. This is a potentially twice as big as Osvik. It's a tilted fault block, and it has a seismic anomaly that actually conforms to that structural definition. So it has all the right characteristics and a chance of success of 30%. So low risk prospect, high volumes, and very exciting follow-on potential. As you can see there, if it comes in, you have a further 200 million in these additional structures around Velocette, all within our license. So this is a key one, and we secured a rig for this exploration well just last week. That was announced. Transocean Norge was secured at a reasonable rig rate, so it's within the budget that we had for this well. So that's kind of the what we have here in the program already, and so we have Velocette, we have potential appraisal drilling, Egyptian Vulture, and it could also be appraisal on Osvik if the test is successful. And then we're also in the market to find additional opportunities. And hello to you, Nick.
Thank you. So just a quick couple minutes on sort of the outlook and what we've been up to on the business development front, which is kind of one of the major pillars here at Longboat. So we have a very active business development pipeline. It's been a very competitive landscape, and I think that the overall commodity volatility has not helped in terms of trying to transact. Just to give you an idea of the sort of stuff we've been doing, we've looked at about 16 opportunities, of which we've consummated one, which was the OMV transaction, which has resulted in the Osvik discovery. From those sort of the remaining ones, about half of them got to a stage where we would make offers. Some of those offers, I think, were effectively stopped as soon as processes were stopped when the Ukrainian situation kicked off earlier this year. And then on the remainder of those, the price has not been right. And I think the reality is that we are happy to lose on price. And some of that price element can also be our views on volumes of sort of production and or reserves. And the reality is that we are very focused on value accretive opportunities. We are heavily invested in the business ourselves, and we're not in business of buying a dollar for a dollar. So we really are trying to maintain a disciplined approach to how we evaluate opportunities. And I'm certain that we will uncover some really exciting ones. And what we are seeking is material value catalysts, things that will really make a difference to the share price. We're looking for ways we can sort of put our creative take on things, maybe unique opportunities where we can get involved and unlock things. We also have a fantastic technical team. And so we're also looking for opportunities where people have misinterpreted something in terms of volume or risk, and see if we can use that to leverage our way into exciting things. Our main focus remains on the North Sea, but almost as a thought exercise, we've been looking at a wider range of things recently. And I think it helps us compare and contrast the sort of opportunities that we're seeing in Norway. We've got a fantastic team with a very wide experience set, in addition to the executive here. And so it's been a really interesting process over the past few months to sort of open our minds a little bit. I think the reality is that for us to dip our toe in the water somewhere else, it would have to be a very exciting and very unique opportunity. and I think it would need a sort of a common thread. And that common thread would likely to be something around our gas focus. I think recent events here in Europe has really sharpened people's minds around how gas is very important, both in terms of the energy transition, but also in terms of energy security. And we think having a gas focus in the business will make us a more sustainable investment over the medium and long term. But our focus still remains on maximizing value from the existing portfolio, and that will be something we'll be very, very focused on over the coming months. So continue to watch the space, and we will update as and when we have anything to update.
Very good. So to summarize, I mean, we have drilled 5 wells this year. We made an excellent discovery in Kveikje. We have a very promising discovery in Husvik. We have exciting news, hopefully very exciting, in 6 to 8 weeks. We are excited about it anyway. It's looking promising. A focus for us is on monetizing Kveikje, where we could sell for cash or swap or do some sort of other deal. That's going to take some time, but there's a significant interest for it. And on generating a high impact program for next year, which we also are very confident we will deliver. So thank you for that, and then we can go to the Q&A session.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed for the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, do please continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab just situated on the right-hand corner of the screen. Just while the team take a few moments to review those questions submitted today, I'd like to remind you the recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard. And perhaps before we touch on some of the questions we've had during today's meeting, we can just take a couple of the pre-submitted questions. The first one reads as follows. You mentioned last year that the Egyptian Vulture appraisal well will be planned in spring 2022, but your comments in the interim support suggests that progress has been slow. When do you anticipate an appraisal well might be drilled? Because clearly the range of potential resources needs to be narrowed before it can be monetized.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And the situation is that we are in a joint venture here. We own 15% of Egyptian Vulture. Operator Equinor is a big company with a lot of assets in Norway, and we have limited influence on how they prioritize their drilling and a drilling program. We have decided in the license to make that appraisal well decision at year end. That will happen if once that decision has been made, then if it will be drilled in 23 or early 24, it's remains to be seen. So we just don't control it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. The next question we've got here is, you mentioned that you're planning 3 to 5 wells next year. How many do you anticipate will be exploration? How many appraisal? Also, how are they going to be funded? It would be very poor to dilute the equity further at the current price.
Yeah, kind of 2 good questions there. I think the obviously one will be a high impact exploration well. That's Velocette. Let's say there are 2 or 3 other wells. I would expect one of them, maybe 2 of them, to be appraisals, but that remains to be seen. In terms of the funding, I think we have covered that. I mean, we have flexibility, and the flexibility is around Kveikje mainly. I think none of us want to, and I know, and I've seen there are several questions that are kind of focused on this. None of us want to issue equity at this, in this kind of market, a very unsettled market, and particularly with our share price having failed to react to the good news we have come up with. So we will be focused on monetizing Kveikje, and then we will see what the DST on Husvik does, and make that announcement, and then we see what the share price do, and then what our options are. I mean, we have more flexibilities than having to try to raise equity in this market. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, I think you've answered the question very well. You know, we do have a good team of people. We see opportunities to drill, and we think that's the way to add value to this business, and it will show through eventually. And I think if you prove the concept by monetizing Curvaceous, I think that will help, and then a good DST on Oswig will help as well. So I think there's catalysts coming up.
Fantastic. And the last pre-submitted question, was kind of very similar in its ilk, just talking about funding and drilling programs. So perhaps we've addressed that there. Nick, may I just ask you just to click on that Q&A tab and just start at the top, and where appropriate to do so, just read out the question or take the question yourself. Thank you.
Equity.
Around equity. So I think we've kind of covered those ones.
I mean, we're shareholders, as are you, many of you who are attending this. I mean, we all hate the idea of having some sort of massive dilution at this kind of level. So I mean, don't be worried that we also share that concern.
Another question on the tax refund. The tax refund is received in November. We're back to the old style rules, even under slightly different rates and slightly different rules, but that comes in November 23.
And we have one from Stefan. What would you need to, let's say, assuming successful well test at Oswig, what would be the chance of success on the various neighboring prospects? That's a hard one to answer on the spot. I think the whole de-risking and re-risking of those prospects will have to happen after we have well got the results in-house and have studied that. But the only thing is that you have massively de-risked it with the Oswig discovery. The main risk pre-drill on Oswig was fault seal and reservoir quality. Fault seal, I mean, that risk is gone. The reservoir risk is about to kind of be resolved with the test. So then drilling those further fault blocks, you go a little bit deeper again. So it kind of the well test result will be quite important for those follow-up prospects, as far as I can see. Then we have a question.
How many wells? I think we've kind of done. I think we've answered bits on Oswig. I think we'll be able to put out quite a bit more information about Oswig once we have
we just need to get the results.
Have the results of the DST. I'm sure a lot more will become clear. Do you have a rough estimate? DST shows reservoir performance in the same way as tuna.
Yeah, I think I mean, just from what we presented, you see that we said it's higher than the pre-drill expectation. But it is not massively higher, because you see the fault block is pretty well constrained. The porosity data and the net to gross is pretty much as by the analog in tuna. So the reason for the higher volume is the confirmation of the deep contact and the fluid properties. So in the 20 to 30% range, I would say, rather than in a doubling or anything like that.
Okay, there's a question on a major shareholder. We can't comment on what major shareholders do and don't do. They run portfolios. We see our shareholders, and broadly they're supportive.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of shareholders this week as we've been on the road, and there's a lot of support for the business. So we find that very encouraging.
Monetary value
for stake in LV. So I would direct you to, instead of sort of making comments on that, what we've disclosed so far is the CPR numbers in this presentation, and then I think we have previously disclosed valuation ranges for what people pay on a per dollar basis, and so I think that's a kind of a useful benchmark in terms of looking at and thinking about what the value might be. I would also point you in the direction of the Auctus research, which is available to everybody, which also has a valuation on all of our assets there.
Rigs next year. Look, Norway's a very active market, far more active than the UK for drilling. That reflects where Norway is on the maturity curve, and the fact that it's a great regime because of the tax system to explore in. As usual, the rig providers are talking the prices up. We're secured on Velocette, which is great. We'll see. Who knows what's happening in the markets right now? Very, very challenging markets for everyone in terms of inflation and some of the decisions being made around monetary and fiscal policy.
Deals.
A question around deals there in terms of, I think a number of the wells are likely to come from the existing portfolio. We have a very active pipeline. We're always looking at a whole range of stuff, everything from exploration, appraisal, all the way through to production. So it's something we actively are pursuing. So I wouldn't want to sort of say anything more than that, other than it's a core area of focus for us.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be more than one deal actually to have a really good program. It could be 2 deals, could be 1 deal, but we're not concerned we don't have that available.
Yeah, I mean, asking for updates on numbers, but we're talking about the half-year numbers here. We have, as we've said, we will upsize the EFF with the lenders. We're going to apply to do that. I'm not going to give updates on the numbers, but as I said, we're ahead of where we expected to be, and we can fund what we're committed for.
A question on the chance of success on Osvik test. I think I think all we can say is that with the data we have from the main wellbore, the indications are that this will be a good test, so we're optimistic. But if it was risk-free, we wouldn't have had to do it. So there are risks, but we're optimistic.
Another one on
secondary. I think there's a bunch of funding things. I think we've covered all of those at the moment. I think they're just sort of questions around, what might be acceptable ranges for transactions. But I think we've covered that already. And there's lots of data available. In fact, I think we've even published historic data around what asset values have been paid for discoveries in Norway. So I think that's in some of our previous presentations. I direct you in that way. That's probably.
Thanks.
Fantastic. Yep. Thank you very much indeed. I think you have covered off all those questions that we've had through that you can. Of course, any further questions that are submitted, the company will have the ability to review those, and we'll publish responses on the Investor Meet Company platform. Helge, just before redirecting investors to give you their feedback, which I know is particularly important to you, if I could just ask you for a few closing comments, please.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for your time, everyone. I mean, this is, I think our business is going in the right direction. I mean, we've had really good results, and it has not come through in the share price. And I think it's frustration for all of us. It will come through. The evidence will be there when we commercialize, monetize, have flow rates, have fields that are moving to developments. It is not like you may drill one well and then it's a big bang, and we can always dream of that exploration well, but very often a bit more effort is required before the value comes through. But I'm very confident, and being in the energy space, being in E&P, being in gas in Norway, close infrastructure, I mean, we're definitely in a really sought after type of resource business. So we'll just push on, and it will all come through. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Fantastic. Thank you all for updating investors today. Can I please ask investors not to close this session, as you'll be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order the team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, and I know it's greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of LONGBOAT Energy PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation. That concludes today's session. Thank you and good afternoon.